All right, well, let's talk about those Twins, shall we? And to do so, let's bring in one of our very own Locked On Minnesota alum, Brandon Warne, host of the Locked On Twins podcast. Check him and Nash Walker out up on YouTube after every single Twins game. He's on Twitter at Brandon_Warne. Brandon, we had your boy Nash on a few weeks ago when the Twins were red hot. A lot's changed since then, but the fact remains, Twins still in first place in the division. Guardians starting to nip at their heels. We're starting to see this team finally find their footing, it feels like. It took 2.5 months, but they're there, finally getting some big key names back again. Joe Ryan, Sonny Gray, after being just decimated by injuries. They take 2 of 3 from the Rays, 2 of 3 from the Mariners, Diamondbacks on deck. Then they got 8 of 11 with Cleveland. But I'm looking at some of the best teams in baseball right now. It's hard not to sit here and just say the Yankees aren't winning this whole thing. I mean, everybody's just playing for second place. That roster, when we got to sit down and watch them play the Twins, 1 through 9, just like Murderer's Row 2.0, they rank among the best in home runs, ERA, WHIP, run differential, etc., etc. Before we get into some Twins talkers, just how good do you think that team can be when they're like at their peak? And honestly, I mean, is anyone going to be able to stop those Yankees from running away with this thing?
I always feel like in the postseason, all that stuff kind of equalizes. It's amazing because you're facing the best of the best that each team has to offer. And so you're not going to see fourth starters. You're not going to see those relievers who give you 4 innings when the starter doesn't go long and all that. So I don't know, man. The October is, like I said, the great equalizer, but this Yankees team is absolutely stacked. And then all of a sudden, Aroldis Chapman goes down and Clay Holmes just comes in and is getting ground balls like it's going out of style, striking a few people out, and really just picking up where prime Aroldis left off. And yeah, I mean, New York right now, the two teams combined have almost 90 wins, and we're not even halfway through the season.
It's wild. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the two best teams on each side. So, the Dodgers will make some noise. The Twins could make some noise. Houston will make some noise. But New York is going to be the center of the baseball universe, and I'm sure they'd love to see another Subway Series like they had back in 2000, I think it was.
Ooh.
And so, yeah, it's a fun league right now, though, because you look at the AL especially, and outside of the Yankees, I think the Twins can keep up with everybody else. And who knows what happens in a short series, although the last 18 years or 18 years, it's been Twins taking the L. In fact, I tweeted the other day, the Montreal Expos were still in existence the last time the Twins won a playoff game.
Oh, my gosh.
They were on the verge of moving to Washington, but they were still in existence.
Wow.
I have a question, and we talked about this yesterday on the podcast. Do you think the Twins have enough to sustain these wins?
Yeah, I do, in the sense of offense. Pitching, that's another story. I think they have enough relievers they can work through and kind of find some guys. They've had some guys kind of pop up. They got some guys in the minors who are kind of interesting. I still think they may need to add one reliever, and any trade this deadline might be easier to add relievers than starters because starters are at such it's just an all-time low almost. Guys are getting hurt. Guys aren't pitching well. If you look at the top 20, 25 pitchers by WAR or whatever statistical measure that you want, those names would definitely surprise you. We're not in that era where you've got the Strasburgs and the Greinke's and the Kershaws all dominating. It's Kershaw who's doing pretty well, and then the other older guys are kind of falling off. There's some familiar names like Verlander and all that, but it's going to be hard to navigate finding a top-tier starter that the Twins are going to be comfortable giving up that many prospects for. Everybody loves Frankie Montas from Oakland. Cincinnati's got Tyler Mahle and Luis Castillo. But honestly, a lot of teams are not going to think of themselves as out of it because of the new setup with playoffs, too. So I think you can go get bullpen guys. They're usually not that expensive. But that small window of 2 months means they could have a couple bad outings, and all of a sudden that whole stretch is shot. So I think the offense is good enough. The pitching is so-so, but they've stemmed the tide. They've managed to make it work. And the rest of the division is kind of shaky. The Guardians are pretty good. The White Sox are kind of finding their way, but then they take 2 steps back every now and then. I think the Twins can hang with this division. It's just a matter of if they do that, what happens in October.
And I think what's funny about that is like Rocco shows that he can have a quick hook with his starting pitchers. But then it's like, well, that would seem to believe that you have a lot of trust in that bullpen, which is shown that they can blow it a lot of different times. So I think to your point, yeah, it would be good if they went out and got one or two bullpen arms because, when in doubt, Rocco's just going to pull the starter and bring in some more pitching. But if he has a better bullpen, then maybe they can play better complementary baseball to kind of get them some more wins down the stretch as, the Guardians are nipping at the heels, as Luke said. And then, you never know how the White Sox may surge.
Yeah, and they're going to get a boost with Jorge Alcala hopefully coming back pretty soon because he's maybe not quite the raw stuff of Joan Duran, but high-octane arm. Griffin Jacks has popped this year. Trevor. I say the wrong McGill brother every single time. The other one plays for the Mets. Trevor McGill has been kind of a revelation for them. So they're mixing and matching, finding some guys who throw hard. You get Joe Smith who throws soft but has a weird arm angle. They're piecing it together. And it's kind of a less is more from your rotation thing where you take out a guy before he's going to get shelled, and then you mix and match with your bullpen because you're only seeing these guys an inning at a time. And if you go Alcala throwing 97, and then Smith throwing 87, and then Duran throwing 102, and then you bring another lefty in like Thielbar, you're given all these different looks, and it makes it hard for opposing managers to handle that. So it's a team that's just, to lack of a better term, some of its parts, and it's going to be a fun stretch that I think a lot of people didn't expect after how bad last year went.
Yeah, good point, too, with the new playoff setup, that teams may not be so prone to have the fire sale that we're used to and just start giving away all these key pieces. I'm just getting back into the MLB much more seriously, first time in a season or two, and I jump in, I see the top of the Twins lineup. You got the top tier, obviously. Buxton, stud. Luis Ariz, stud. Correa, stud. Then you get that second tier, pretty solid. Kepler, Polanco, Sanchez, Urshela. And then you hit this third tier, and this is where I need some help because it feels like the Twins have like 10 young guys on the rise they want to rotate in on any given night with those last 3 or 4 spots. Garlick, Celestino, Miranda, Jeffers, Larnach, Nick Gordon, Alex Kirilloff. That's like 7 guys. I'm probably missing 1 or 2. They're all relatively pretty young. I'm not an expert like you. Which 1 or 2 of these guys do you think like has the highest ceiling and would you like to see kind of turn into a staple in this lineup, say 2023, night in and night out? Like who's the best of the bunch just from a raw talent perspective in your opinion that gets you the most excited?
It's a balanced bunch, and I think that in some sports, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have 0 quarterbacks. If you have 2 really good point guards, you have 0 point guards. That's not the case here. If you have a guy struggling, you can supplement. You can mix and match based on lefty-righty, late in games, early in games, positional versatility, and all that. The guy for me that stands out is Alex Kirilloff. And for the longest time, Trevor Larnach and Alex Kirilloff were kind of interchangeable as the team's best outfield prospect. Larnach has taken a step forward this year defensively. He's in the middle of like a 1 for 22 funk. So his numbers don't look great right now. But as far as a polished hitter, he's 25. He hits the ball really hard to the opposite field. And again, defensively, he's really taken a step forward. But for me, Kirilloff is just like a hitting machine. And once they get that wrist healthy, which it kind of seems like is the case because he's been absolutely awesome, on fire at St. Paul, he's probably going to be the centerpiece of an offense that's putting the ball in play. He might not hit a ton of homers, but he could be good for 40 doubles a year and, play first base, play outfield. All their guys are kind of versatile, which helps too, because then you're mixing and matching with guys who can play as opposed to maybe 8-9 years ago when it was minor league journeymen coming up. So Kirilloff is the guy for me, but Larnach isn't far behind because, those might be your outfield. I don't want to call them cornerstones because Buxton is the cornerstone, but they'll each lock down a corner and be pretty dang solid. So, yeah, AK is the one, and they got to get him up here pretty soon, man. He is absolutely killing it with the
Yeah,
save.
just crushing, I heard. Kirilloff, Larnach, future Hall of Fame players. You
There
heard
you
it
go.
here first. Brandon Warne on Twitter, at Brandon_Warne. All right, last one real quick. MLB drafts coming up here. I'm a total NFL draft nut. Lay it out for me. Is there any like Bryce Harpers, Manny Machados, like blue chip can't miss guys that we should circle right now and kind of put in the back of our mind? This guy should be a stud here in the next 3-4 years. Or who's the top talent or two? Twins picking at number 8 overall. Is there
Yeah.
one guy specifically that you think maybe could fall right in their lap that talent would suggest could be a steal or just good value?
Well, you know how in baseball especially we like players whose parents played or dads played.
Yes.
And Drew Jones, who's Andrew Jones' son,
Yes.
is he's a dynamo. I think they project him to go like second overall though, so he won't be there for the Twins. Cam Collier is the guy I'm kind of locked in on at 8, and his old man played, I believe, in the big leagues. I'm trying to remember if it was Lou Collier. I can't remember for sure, but shortstop. And again, you know, you look at the Twins, you're like, oh man, Correa, Lewis,
Yeah.
Austin Martin. They got all these shortstops. Everybody's a shortstop coming out unless they're left-handed.
Yeah.
Joe Nathan, Twins reliever, shortstop coming out. Kind of funny, like Joe Mauer wasn't a shortstop just because he's a catcher. But if you're
Right.
up the middle talent, you can move some guys around. Cam Collier, though, kid from Georgia, big arm. He does everything you want. I'm just curious, is he going to be there at 8? But that's the guy I'm really focused on. I love when they take high tool, high talent, high school guys, because those are the ones who become the superstars. College players, a little more polished, a little less ceiling. High school guys, man, it's shoot for the stars or completely miss. And that's kind of the beauty of the MLB draft compared to the NFL draft, which is your bread and butter.
Right. Yeah. All right. MLB draft right around the corner. I'm writing that name down. Collier at 8. You feel like, all right, pretty good
Let's hope.
value. Brandon Warne, ladies and gentlemen, just a fountain of knowledge. Check him out on Twitter at Brandon_Warne. And after every Twins game, up on YouTube with our good friend Nash Walker on the Locked On Twins postcast, all part of the Locked On Minnesota Network. Brandon, you're the man. We'll talk to you again real soon, all right?
Be good.
All right. Thanks, brother. Brandon Warne, ladies and gentlemen. Reggie, any quick takeaways from Brandon right there?
I think he just, to pat ourselves on the back here, he was saying a lot of things that we kind of been echoing. So it was good to get, an informed baseball person just kind of say like they probably got to stand pat a little bit. But, whereas I was talking about them maybe going out and trying to get another starter, with as high of a price tag as that's going to cost and just unproven commodities all across the league, I think he made a great point talking about the bullpen, trying to get some arms for the bullpen on the cheap to help. And like I said, because Rocco has shown that, after 4 or 5 innings, he'll pull a guy and go straight to that bullpen. And so if he's got some rock solid arms in that pen, then maybe we feel a little bit better about him pulling a starter after 5 innings to preserve them because, the bullpen will do what they have to do.
Love what he said also about this just new postseason format. Again, teams might not be so quick to have the fire sale.